A huge new Pew Research Center study finds us more divided than ever.
An officer opened fire on Philando Castile.
Both candidates have ratcheted up
the
their
number of
attacks.
soldiers killing themselves began to rise sharply. That perhaps
largest iceberg in human history could break off from Antarctica literally any minute. It could be wild.
Breaking news out of Orlando. The terrorists on a big
the epidemic, which is taking more than 80 lives a day. West Virginia.
Controversy.
We will make America great again.
What did you do when everything was on the line?
The world will try to convince you that there's nothing you can do to change it.
I alone can fix it.
But there is a power that allows ordinary people to do extraordinary things. Great leaders have it.
I have a dream.
Yes, we can.
Great entrepreneurs have it.
Your time is limited, so don't waste it living someone else's life. There is no reason not to follow your heart.
People who change the world have it.
They thought that the bullet would silence us, but they failed.
You have this power too. When you are inspired by purpose, all your thoughts break their bonds.
Purpose is what creates true happiness.
Your mind transcends limitations. Your consciousness expands in every direction.
It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
And you find yourself in a new, great, and wonderful world. Dormant forces, faculties, and talents come alive. And you discover yourself to be a greater person by far than you ever dreamed yourself to be. The only difference between living life on the world's terms and having everything you've ever wanted is one thing: purpose. Purpose is the one thing that changes everything. Nothing can stop an idea whose time has come. The power to live your purpose isn't in their hands. It's in yours.
Purpose is that feeling that you are a part of something bigger than yourself, that you are needed, and that you have something better ahead to work for. You are graduating into a world that needs purpose, and it's up to you to create it.
On September 12th, the time has come for you to claim your power.
I usually give this talk in about 4 days. I got about 20 minutes, so I'm gonna do my best to be here. It's grateful for your attention. This conversation is about how to biohack your nervous system to become your ally instead of your enemy. That sound good? So here's what we're gonna do. Why do you biohack? I'm curious. Be your best self, awesome. What else? Live long and healthy, determination. Typically what the answer is typically high performance. Does anyone resonate with that idea of high performance? Yes? But why do we want to be high performers? Is it just for more money, more success, more followers? That's right. So we obviously need something different, something greater. So I want to just share with you this idea of why I think you might be biohacking. And it goes like this. The only difference between people who are thriving romantically, financially, spiritually, who are really crushing it in a business, and people who are stuck and stagnated and really missing out, what do you think the only difference between someone who's really rocking it and someone who's stuck? What's the only difference? Come on, you guys. It's Bulletproof coffee, of course. Jeez. And one more thing. Purpose. People who know their purpose excel in every area of their life. And this is not some woo-woo BS. There's actually new peer-reviewed research that proves this to be true as well. But when you have purpose, when you have a sense of why you're doing this, and you know what your purpose is, and you're bringing it to life, you excel in financially, in an entrepreneurial endeavor, in a relationship, because you have a reason to be there beyond yourself. Who follows? Does this make sense? And now I know it's a little bit early, but does this make sense, you guys? Yes? This is some deep stuff, so I want to make sure that you're with me. All right? So here are the side effects of your purpose, and this is from either a decade of my research working with tens of thousands of people, or a brand new peer-reviewed research that came out from the Journal of Psychosomatic Medicine. Okay? So this is a combination of my data and this data, which is this: financial abundance. You get to set the example for your children. Do children pay attention to what you say or what you do? Real loud, guys. What you say or what you do? That's right. So if you're not living your purpose, you cannot expect your children to live theirs, right? So you've got to be the parent you want your child to be one day. So that's the name of the game. Also, it's what brings real soulmate love, because it's not just some quick fix where maybe you have biochemical attraction to ensure the species procreates, but really in soulmate love, people tend to have opposite wounding or opposite traumas, and purpose helps people come together and heal that, which is why there's no perfect marker for how much you have to love yourself before you can be in a relationship, because your soulmate will love unlovable parts of you, and that surely is an extension of your purpose. Now, the rest of this stuff comes from a brand new study. Purpose increases your HDLs, lowers LDLs, lowers A1C levels. It gives improved quality of sleep, improved immune function. It lowers the risk of heart attack, and it builds resilience. So basically, purpose is grass-fed butter. That's what I want you to think about, okay? It's the exact same thing, and it can add up to 7 years to your life. Who wants these benefits? Let me see by show of hands. So the thing is, it takes a little bit more than what you think to bring this to life. But one last thing for the data geeks out there, I want to share this with you, okay? Possessing a sense of purpose in life is associated with a reduced risk for all-cause mortality and cardiovascular events. That's not me. I don't write like that. That's from the Psychosomatic Medicine Journal, Behavioral Medicine, which is very official, by the way. Okay? But this is after a 10-year study, and the cool thing about this study was there was no funding, so there's no bias. This is just pure data. So this idea that I have purpose is super, super important, and so that's what we're going to talk about today briefly, and hopefully I'll make you laugh a little bit, because I think sometimes us high performers can take ourselves a little too seriously. Like, no, it optimizes my HDL levels. Well, actually, it lowers your HDL levels. Well, no, I mean, actually, it optimizes my LDL levels. Well, actually, you know what? That really affects your blood sugar levels. It's like, guys, everyone's different and unique, but I think we should learn to laugh at ourselves a little bit. Do we agree? Yes. All right, cool. So the most important question you're going to ever ask in your life is not what are my labs, but what's my purpose? That will be the most important question, because your purpose informs your biology, because your biology was created for you to live your purpose, not the other way around. And so literally all the biomarkers in your body increase when you have a sense of purpose, and it informs you, it extends your life, and it makes you useful and in service to other people. So if I had to really break down the definition of purpose into a way we could all understand, I'm going to do it for you in about 60 seconds. Because I've traveled the world, spoken in front of tens of thousands of people, and I ask the audiences questions like, what's purpose mean? And the answer I get back is, why I was born, contributing, it's my son, it's my business, it's my this, it's my that. And unfortunately, if we don't have a shared definition, how could we ever know what the hell we're talking about? Who follows? Does this make sense? Could you imagine if every functional medicine doctor had a different definition of what an LDL was? Well, it's clearly a gut micro issue. No, it's a blood thing. No, it's a brain thing. Well, how the hell are you going to know what an LDL is if you don't have a definition of it? So we need a common definition of purpose. Do you agree? I think so too. So, briefly, why do we set goals, whether it's more money, to have children, to lose weight, to get more followers, to optimize our life? Why do you set a goal? So he said happiness, which is around the answer, which is in the right zone. It's really just a feel. The goals that you set in your life are there to produce a feeling. So you're not actually going for the actual goal. You're going for the feeling that you think the goal will bring you. And if you're not aware of this, this is what happens when you set a goal, you achieve it, and happiness lasts 2 days. A really good friend of mine, her goal was to be a New York Times bestselling author. She was happy for 3 days. 3 days. Do you think that's a valuable investment of time? No way. So what we have to realize is you're pursuing material things to hit emotional targets. That's not smart. And so this is important to understand. in my definition of purpose, which I will go into in 1 second. Now, actually, it's right here. So this is the definition. My definition of purpose, and by the way, I'm going very fast, so I'm going to make sure you guys have copies of these slides. So if you want to take down notes, no need to do that. I'll make sure that you guys get this so that you can just pay attention to me today. All right? Purpose is an emotion that you learn how to cultivate within yourself, and then you express to the world in the service to other people. So you got to, first of all, have emotional awareness. Then you have to have emotional intelligence, which says, how do I produce these things? And then you have to have emotional fitness, which says, I got to train this emotion every single day. Just like you train myelin, just like you train your muscles, you have to train your emotional body as well. But that's not enough. You then have to express yourself in service to others, which is terrifying. And that's like going live on Facebook, writing a book, speaking up, standing up, whatever it might be. We are all expressions. And so if you're not expressing yourself from the emotions that you want to see in the world, you're never going to get there, which is a big problem today. Most people are trying to consume from the world the emotions they should be bringing forward. I could do a whole 4-day talk on that. But this is the common definition. So I want you to understand it's an emotional game. It's not being a parent. It's not being an entrepreneur. It's none of those things. Those are all expressions of your purpose. But ultimately, your purpose is an emotional state that you're trying to hit most of the time. Who follows? Does this make sense? You guys with me on this? Okay, cool. So the problem is your nervous system doesn't want you to feel good. This is the problem. Because feeling good is vulnerable, and vulnerability equals death. Vulnerability equals death. So when we get into the emotions of positivity, whether it's love, joy, connection, whatever it might be, your nervous system says, no, hold on a second. You cannot feel joy today, because if you do, you'll be hurt like you were in the past. And so what happens is we have your nervous system versus your heart, or your nervous system versus your soul. And typically without awareness, which one wins? The nervous system. What's more powerful, your conscious or your subconscious? All day long, right? So this is why the awareness has to be there. So what's going to stand in your way of bringing your purpose to life? How many words for love were there in the Greek language? I think 6 or 7. There should be more than one word for fear, because there's so many different types of fear. Should we be afraid of if the building is burning down? That's a necessary response. But what about being afraid to go live on Facebook? I know who you are. Right? So fear is sort of a broad term. The real truth is unhealed emotional trauma. That's what will stand in your way. So no level of biohacking, meditation, prayer, yoga will work if you don't do your emotional work. And all of us have it. And the achiever word for unhealed emotional trauma is stress or anxiety. I don't have trauma, I'm just stressed, right? I have anxiety, right? Most anxiety, most depression is actually a norm for people who have learned to cope fairly well with and survive with unhealed emotional trauma. So what I help people do is really identify what that stuff is, not to be on some couch for 10 years talking about it and resolve it quickly, because typically it takes a moment or two to be traumatized. It shouldn't take 2 fucking decades to be untraumatized. Who follows? Does this make sense? So that's why I created functional life coaching, and basically if I had to say what functional life coaching is, it basically helps people rapidly identify and accelerates the healing and what those root mental and emotional causes are. So similar to functional medicine, where you really don't just take a statin to lower your cholesterol, right? You figure out, oh, you have fat. Oh my God, it's the cinnamon rolls. Not, Lipitor that you should be focused on, right? Who follows? Does this make sense? The same thing is true emotionally. So there can be all kinds of things outwardly that you try to use to cover up your emotional trauma, and what happens is it just gets you stuck. So what happens is we don't necessarily just have fear. We have what I call survival patterns. And survival patterns basically defined as hidden blocks that you have, which means you don't know you have them, they're unconscious, or they're blind spots. Who here thinks you might have a blind spot? Who here knows what your blind spots are? Don't put your hands up. Because we don't know. Right? And I've worked with tens of thousands of people, and what I've seen consistently is we all have blind spots, and those are there to help keep us safe. So if you feel like you're getting stuck in a certain area, stuck is safe. So it's not necessarily bad because it's a great survival strategy, however, not so good for optimizing your life and thriving. Does that make sense? So what we have to realize is, first of all, we have to become aware of what our blocks are and what's the root cause of those blocks. And what happens is there's this thing called good fear, and there's this idea of bad fear. Good fear, the building, cancel universe is burning down, right? Bad fear, I'm in a heated argument with someone that I love, and I basically just I say the worst thing to them to try to defend myself versus just listening, right? Good fear is, you know what, probably shouldn't have this margarine in front of me, right? Bad fear is, I'm scared to go live on Facebook because I think everyone's going to judge me. Does that make sense? So not all fear is bad and not all fear is good. There's a little bit of both, but typically 99% of what you're afraid of, you shouldn't be afraid of. And every survival pattern ends with this idea of then I'll die. So I can't start my business because then I'll go broke, and if I go broke, I'll be out on the street alone, and when I'm on the street alone, then I'll die. I can't self-disclose in a soulmate relationship because if I do, they're going to trample me, and if they trample me or leave me, then I'll die. It's always I'll die, and I'll die, and I'll die, and I'll die. And some of you hate yourself so much that you don't think you're just going to die, but you think that when you go to heaven, if you believe in a heaven, that God will unmake your soul because you're so unworthy. Right? So the idea is we have to start to call BS on this and realize that we don't really have the level of awareness that we need in our nervous system. So what happens is unhealed emotional trauma can lead to low-level coping mechanisms to cope with the trauma, such as drugs, alcohol, promiscuous sex, gossip, toxic relationships, soul-sucking jobs, high fructose corn syrup for sure. Blaming other people, creating drama, hiding abuse, violence, bigotry, racism, and repressing feelings with all of the above. Basically pop culture. So when you look in the world today, what's happening is people, whether it's the political divide or you're seeing what's happening with Harvey Weinstein and all of this, the whole conversation is about trauma, and that's what's surfacing right now. And it's time for it to surface. And there's some key traumas that have to surface, primarily misogyny and racism. Those are the two that need to be healed and identified at the moment, sort of in this country right now. So that's what you're seeing if you were wondering why the world is going the way that it is right now. It's because we're becoming aware of it so that we can heal it. So I'm excited about that. However, we're at the Bulletproof conference, and unhealed trauma also leads to high-level coping mechanisms. I don't handle that low-level bullshit anymore, Mastin. I'm not going to do high fructose corn syrup. I know better, right? So what do? We have yoga and yoga apparel. We have quantified self apps. We have self-help books, especially with the business and health ones primarily, right? We got the gluten, sugar, dairy, meat, soy, GMO, taste-free food. Basically, all you can eat is bark these days and butter. That's about it. Green juice with an emphasis on kale. I hate you, kale. Meditation, anything that helps you crush it in the world, right? Blaming Mercury in retrograde, that's one of my favorite ones. A high-paying instead of a low-paying soul-sucking job. Raw honey or any of these raw sweeteners or stevia, all these things, right? Monk fruit and stuff like that. Using high-level and vague scientific-sounding words, right? Like, no, you don't understand. I have the reversed pre-diabetic condition known as the metformin high-performance analogy of the butter thing, right? And on top of that, we have this idea of not speaking up and calling it the higher path when you're really just holding on to resentment. Spiritual entertainment, which is when you read your favorite self-help book. And have you ever done this where you get there and you're like, oh my God, I got my highlighter out. You're like, where was this 10 years ago? And you're like, I am one with the universe. I understand my past. My future is clear. I have arrived. Who's ever been there before? Come on, y'all. Who's ever been there before? Have you simultaneously woke up the next morning and you're like, what was that shit I read yesterday? Right? That's spiritual entertainment, right? Which is way better than other entertainment, but entertainment without action is basically worthless, right? And then reacting to xenophobia with xenophobia, this goes out to the vegans out there, right? Because I can't tell you, when I start talking about eating butter, they're like, you can't have butter? Do you know what you're doing to the cows? I'm like, okay, but like what my body needs is this, right? And you can have xenophobic vegans, you can have xenophobic paleo people, xenophobic Republicans, Democrats, Christians, Jews, Muslims, atheists, whatever. Because if you're scared of something that you don't understand and you rally against it, you cut yourself off from understanding what could help influence it. Because if you're hating something, you can't influence it. It's true. So, and then we can repress feelings. Now, here's the thing. I do all this stuff for the most part. The difference is when you're doing your emotional work, this stuff will fuel your purpose, not hold back your feelings. Who follows? Does this make sense? So everything that you're here learning and doing and growing can be a high-level coping mechanism unless you're healing your underlying emotional trauma. Because if you don't heal your trauma, then it just becomes coping, and you don't want to cope. Who here's done coping, and you want to actually enjoy your life long-term? Yes? Let me see if I show hands. So get as obsessed with healing your emotional side as you are with your quantified self apps, right? I love quantified self stuff. I do my lipid profile myself 3 times a week. I watch my HDLs and LDLs go up and down every single day. I love it. And I also do my emotional work, and that's the name of the game. So my fear maxim is this. Unless you're in mortal danger, fear is a compass showing you where to go. So if you want to know what to do, look at what you're most afraid of and do it. This requires a little bit of common sense. Don't say, Mastin, there's this gentleman down this dark alleyway with a gun. I'm scared of him. Let me go towards him. Right? So use a little bit of common sense, but typically look at the things you're most afraid of doing and just do it until you're not afraid of it anymore, and it'll be gone. And that's the name of the game. So, in short, when you live your purpose, you turn your nervous system into your ally because you have a reason beyond yourself to face your fear. Who follows? Does this make sense? Does this make sense? So think about this for a second. Why are you going to go live on Facebook? Why are you going to start your business? Why are you going to quit your soul-sucking job? Why are you going to stay in your relationship this time and not leave? Is it just because you want more followers or more money? Is it because you need 6-pack abs? Right? You got to find that reason that's greater than yourself to contribute, and when you do, you have resilience, you can handle negative situations, and for God's sakes, you become a solution in this world, not the problem, because the problem is easy, but becoming a part of the solution, very difficult. So, Bulletproof, why do you biohack? That's right, because now more than ever, the world needs your purpose, and my great wish is that you get the courage to get out there, take action, and make it real. Bulletproof Conference, thank you very much.